a collective. It's Ron at Becoming Enlightened Together. So this is my third and final reading for today. Okay, and as we saw from last Sunday, I look at the overall energy of the week, and that's what I love about divination, especially when it proves to be so, I guess you could say, concise and I don't want to say accurate, because then it sounds like I'm tooting my horn, and I'm not trying to do that. But what we do see here is very, very symmetrical energy, where it is telling us exactly what it warned us about at the very beginning of the week. So we're closing off in a very low vibrational and I guess you could say negative landscape. At least it's negative in the perspective of for those who are in karmic energy in our lives. If you happen to be cross-watching, you're going to see that it's going to be coming to a head here very, very soon. And we see that amplified because I have 4 and potentially even 5 gods that showed up for this particular reading. That never has happened. So, I have 6 total runes that I pull. Well, actually only 5 each day. The 6th one is the overall energy for the week. And out of those 6 runes, I had, like I said, 4, potentially 5 gods that showed up. And if you look at, from the perspective of both my help and advice as well as my future outcome are of the same rune, which I've heard is sometimes associated with the god Balder. Now, God Balder is the god of light and love. He was very much beloved. He was so beloved, in fact, he actually emanated light. And I guess you could say he was Christ-like in many ways. And I don't want to get into the mythology of that. That'll get me into a whole segue, which could take the whole, time that I'm going to do the reading. But whether it is, representative of him or not, I don't know with a certainty, again, because of the differences that I get from the different authors out there on these subjects. But what we do see is this indicates that it's a very, very ironclad statement that, it's almost curtains out for the karmics. So they're going to be, or already are experiencing, a tremendous amount of pain and suffering, and they're getting what it is that they dished out for some cases many, many years without any kind of penalty that they've had to pay. And while they were mocking and even laughing at those, they were cursing the whole time. So I have empathy all the same, but at the same time, I also know that we need to learn. And sometimes, the lessons have to be hard learned. In other words, sometimes we won't listen unless there is a very stiff penalty attached to it. And that's kind of where we get our modern legal system, although that is a whole twisted subject all on its own, which I've written about that I want to talk about here. But from the perspective of, enlightenment or, higher states of spirituality, if you will, it is a more balanced approach. It truly is blind, okay? So we have the scales, like Libra in astrological terms and so on. It holds the scales, right, of truth. And that's basically what, the statue for our legal system is. The blind, woman holding the scales and things of that nature. So is that true? Not in our system. We're talking about a human system, so it's controlled, and it works for those who write the laws and so on and so forth, at the detriment of those who follow the laws, so to speak. So, but it doesn't work that way in terms of karma. Okay, there is a universal order that nobody can escape, and you can't persuade it otherwise or whatever. It's just. So what you put out there is what you're getting back. Okay. All right. So what is the overall energy? I just told you that we had 4 and potentially 5 gods that showed up, and they're all in the reverse. I have one exception. I'll get to that in a minute. Now, we start off with the goddess Freya, whose rune is in the reverse. Okay, and it's Fehu. Now, Fehu means basically grief, disappointments. Talks about losses of all types, financially, property losses, even psychological, physical losses. So it could talk about things where a person's body is basically starting to atrophy. Talks about failures and burnout. Talks about cowardice. Talks about discord within your personal and your private relationships. It talks about stupidity and dullness. It talks about, again, slavery, bondage, poverty of every type. So a very, very negative energy for the overall encompassing energy for the week. And that's really what we're seeing to close off this week today. So what we pulled for this day, Saturday, the 16th, we pulled last Sunday, was that of another goddess, which is Birchta. Let me see. It should be this way, I think. It's hard to tell because it always looks different on the screen. But anyways, this is the rune Barkana. And Barkana, representative of the goddess, Birchta, which is the purity goddess, or Mother Nature goddess, or the birch goddess, which stands for purity. It was often used for, purification as well as other types of medicinal uses and so on. And what it means in the reverse is things such as family issues and problems of all types, needs not being met, anxiety, turmoil, and that means also domestic issues as well as blood family. It talks about anxiety and worry, a great deal of anxiety over somebody in your family situation. It talks about carelessness, abandon. It talks about somebody losing control. That could cover a gamut, a whole gamut of different possibilities. It talks about the blurring of someone's consciousness, deception, sterility, and stagnation. Now, sterility, or any of these things that we talk about in regards to fertility and everything else, it could be, in a physical sense, a reality, physical sterility, and if so, you have my sympathy. If you're trying to have a child, it could be as a result of some type of disease contracted. We've certainly seen that reflected many times this week. Some type of sickness. But it could also be, sterility in forms of, your just inability to be able to do anything creative, anything progressive, to move forward in any way or any fashion or form. Perhaps you've lost your job and maybe you're, in a standstill right now in your life financially. And we're certainly seeing that echoed with the overall energy of the week with Fehu. Okay, so all of these things are basically mirroring in one way or another each other. Okay, now the present energy is another god. One we got for yesterday's reading, if you will, or the one I just did before this one. It is that of the god Thor, but it is also in the reverse today. Thurisas in the reverse. So it's pretty nasty. Present energy is somebody who's very stubborn and foolhardy. Somebody who is just full of ego and envy and pride and will not listen to reason. You cannot speak with them. You can give them all the facts in the world and they simply will not hear. Well, they may listen to you, but they're not really hearing you. Okay? So that's the energy we're looking at. Somebody who's in a state of folly. Is a danger to themselves and to others around them. Somebody who is in a state of themselves being defenseless or defenselessness. Somebody who is basically giving in to their compulsions, all of their desires and so on and so forth. They have no self-control, in other words. Somebody who is and is being betrayed. Somebody who's dull. Somebody who's evil. In malice, somebody who's very hateful, somebody who is tormented and is tormenting those around them, somebody who is very spiteful, is a liar, never tells the truth. No matter what they may seem in their outward appearance or how believable they may seem, once you break it down, if you're intuitive at all, you can see through all of their lies. Somebody who is a rapist and basically a very, very bad person in general. And the gods see them as such. So take heed, regardless whether you believe in a god per se or whatever the case may be, there is universal justice. So if this is the kind of energy you're putting out there, again, karma will come knocking on your door. Now, our obstacles and challenges is the only, actually no, I have 2 runes that are in upright, but obstacles and challenges is the god Tyre's rune. It looks like an arrow. Let's see if I can get that so it focuses in. There we go. So that's Tiwas. Tiwas is the very first rune of the 3rd group family or Aya, and it is the god Tyre's. He's the great earth god, okay? He's the god of justice and leadership of all types, all the different traits and attributes that are encompassing that particular subject matter he embodies, okay? So that's what it talks about, being a warrior, somebody who is able to self-sacrifice. I mean, that's the whole mythology behind Tyre. He sacrificed an entire arm in order to do something for the greater good, for the gods and the goddesses. Somebody who is courageous and just, exactly the opposite of what we've been seeing all week long when it's pointing to the karmics. Okay, so it's somebody who is in a state of honor, who is a leader, an authoritarian, or somebody who is in a authoritative position, somebody who's rational and wise, somebody who knows their strengths and weaknesses, somebody who is leading and experiencing victory and successes, and the overall success in any competition, including legal matters. So those are your obstacles and challenges. Perhaps somebody in the collective may be going through some type of illegal confrontation and is stating that you will be successful. So fear not, no matter how unjust it may seem or crazy the allegations or whatever the circumstances may be. But this reading is really focusing on the karmics. So the obstacles and challenges are for the karmics. They have to rise up and embody this type of energy, or the other things that we're talking about are certainly going to happen and in spades for them. The only way for them to even to remedy or relieve themselves of the total burden that they are experiencing is to start learning the lessons that they need to learn and to actually putting them into practice. You can't fool the universe. You can't pretend your way out of this. So you have to literally embody this and put these things into action. Okay? And only then will you stop adding to the karma and start doing the necessary repairs and start the healing process, in other words. Okay. Now, our help and advice, what we have is Lagus, and it too is in the upright, so it's very positive rune as well. But again, you have to embody this energy, since this reading right here is definitely for the karmics. Now, Lagus talks about things of water, okay, rivers, lakes, streams, the ocean itself, the flow of water, leaks of water, stoppages, things of that nature. But water always relates, especially in terms of divination, into things such as emotions. So it also talks about the dream state, intuition, psychic matters, occult abilities and matters, fantasies and mysteries, the unknown, the hidden, even the underworld itself. It talks about those things which are hidden, the psychic abilities and psychic feminine. It talks about success in acquisition, but the possibility of losing those things. So even if you do acquire a certain prize or something that you work diligently for, you're going to lose it. Okay, that's what it's getting at here, or there's the possibility of losing it, I should say. So it talks about fertility, and it It talks about life energy and renewal. So those, of course, are very, very positive things. But again, you have to encompass or embody that energy for it to be of any benefit for you, which requires physical effort, mental, psychological, and spiritual effort, and discipline. There's a lot of discipline involved on your part in order to, overcome the other energies that we're looking at here. That's why it's under the help and advice. Now, the future outcome, unfortunately, is less positive. It's exactly the same room, Legos, only this time it is in the reverse. Now, Legos in the reverse, it talks about somebody, again, basically either using their masculine or feminine, attributes to tempt, or they themselves are being tempted, perhaps both. Okay, so temptation is a very big part of this energy. Greed, acting even against their own conscience and something. They know what is right and wrong. They might even talk to themselves while they're in fact in the middle of doing some of these things, in some cases even heinous things, but they're doing it anyways. Basically, this is a period of confusion for them, wrong decisions being made, poor judgment being exercised, somebody who's, like I said, lacking creativity, so they're not able to move forward in whatever, pursuits, or endeavors that they're trying to incorporate, maybe in a new job, entrepreneurial type of endeavor. So it talks about making a lot of wrong decisions. It talks about perhaps feeling in a rut, which is understandable based on what we just read. Otherwise, somebody who's very fearful, maybe feeling like they're just moving in circles, that they get to a point where it looks like they may make some headway finally, and yet something else is added to their, their torment, so to speak. Because make no mistake about it, some of these people are really, really tormented at this point. But that's because that's what they needed. Okay? So basically, we're talking about somebody who's avoidant. And again, we've seen more than our share of that. Somebody may have an avoidant attachment personality or something. They're in and out of your life, that kind of a thing. Somebody who is withering away, perhaps because of a sickness, or perhaps they're withering because they're just simply running out of energy because of all that they're trying to fight against and endure. Somebody who may be, battling with a state of madness and obsession. Somebody who's in a state of despair, perversity, sickness, and even flirting with the idea of taking themselves out. So suicide is also part of this. As you can see, it's a very, very negative way, and that's the future outcome for those who have truly done the most and refuse to listen to reason. Again, we've seen this echoed time and time and time again. It's inevitable. The energy is very consistent. It keeps coming out for the karmics, or at least those who are very, very adamantly opposed to doing any type of work on themselves. Okay, so with that being said, and I wish I could close out the week on a more positive note, but it's not negative in the truest sense of that word, at least for the collective. And there is hope for the karmics out there that are going through some of this, if they indeed have the heart and the discipline to start applying some of the lessons that they're hopefully learning from all of this, pain and suffering. If not, then the end result is pretty clear. And again, they have nobody to blame but themselves. And I don't mean to add insult to injury or put salt on those wounds, but that is exactly what this energy is telling me. And again, I'm not one to candy coat things. I tell it exactly the way that I hear it, see it, and I feel it. So you can be angry at me all you want if that helps. I don't care. I don't. If nothing else, I'm used to it anyway. So. But if it'll help you in some way, yell, scream, stomp your feet, throw tomatoes at me, whatever it is that helps you to blow off that steam. But I prefer that you used it in a more positive light. Like I said, for the help and advice by utilizing your intuition to understand that this is a lesson. This is here for your edification, and you, because of your stubborn ways, just like a stubborn child who simply refuses to listen to reason and does the same crime again and again and again and again, and you run out of other ways or options to address this. You can either pretend though it's not happening, not a very practical approach, and it's not going to be helpful to either of you. You will endure, the repercussions of their actions, and they not learning, the lessons necessary for them to be productive and a viable part of the human collective. So, hopefully, you can come to some kind of reason and you'll do the work. And I hope that you do. I really do. So, with that being said, I wish you all victory, of course, good or bad. The karmics out there, or, of course, my collective who's out there who's looking for answers. I hope I provided at least some measure of understanding for you. With that being said, I leave you to it the rest of your week, and I hope you have a great weekend. Okay? Take care. God bless.